Perhaps you feel, but Mark, I'm a really good person. Maybe I've attended this church for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. I've never cheated on my spouse, never cheated on my taxes. I've been baptized. I am a really moral person. Let's look in the Bible at some really good moral people. If these people came to this church this morning, they'd probably be down on the front row. And if we looked at them on the outside, we'd probably say, well, if anybody's going to heaven, it's probably these people. Let's look at what God says. Matthew chapter 7, verse 21. It says, not everyone that says unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that does the will of the Father which is in heaven. Now watch what these people say. These are pastors, evangelists, Sunday school teachers, deacons. Watch what they say. Many will say unto me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name? And in your name have we cast out devils, and in your name have we done many wonderful works. Then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you that work iniquity. These people thought that they could stand up behind a pulpit or in a Sunday school class and that they could work long enough and God would one day say, thumbs up, you've done it. And God said, depart from me, I never knew you. Billy Sunday said, hell is the highest reward the devil can offer you for being a servant of his. What does Jesus say about the hypocrisy of religious people who are trying to work their way to heaven? 7 times in Matthew 23, he says, woe to you scribes and Pharisees. He accuses them of being hypocrites, blind guides, blind fools, blind men, and snakes. He even says they are dirty dishes and tombs, clean on the outside, but dirty on the inside. Now let's look at a really bad person. If this person walked into church today, he'd probably be out in the lobby. Probably wouldn't even come to church. If we looked at him on the outside, we'd say, man, anybody's going to hell, it'd be this guy. Actually, when you look at this guy in the Bible, he's been punished, he's been caught for his crimes, and he's on a cross dying for his crimes. You remember the scene in Luke chapter 23. Jesus is dying on the cross. He's dying for every one of our sins because he's perfect. And you have a thief. You have 2 thieves, both dying for their sins, for their crimes. One's over here yelling, one's over here screaming, get us down off the cross if you're really the Christ. And do you remember the thief over here? Hands nailed, feet nailed, he realizes he's in big trouble. He's being punished, he's caught paying for his sins, and he looks to Christ and he says, you're really God's son. He said, I am. And he said, today, would you remember me when you come into paradise? And Jesus says, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. Don't miss what just happened right there. He became a Christian. Hands nailed, feet nailed. He turned to Christ, realized he was a sinner, knew he was about to die, and he accepted the only way to God. That's what salvation is. Has there been a point in your life, not the person next to you, has there been a point in your life where you've done that? You turned to Christ, who was on the cross, and said, I accept that free gift of salvation. That's what salvation is. Now, I haven't met most of you, so maybe you're one of those people who think, but Mark, I'm really, really, really good, and I can get there. If you think that's the case, do you realize in heaven there is a book with every one of your good works listed in them? And if you believe that you're going to show them to God one day, he will get the book out and show it to you. Turn to Revelation chapter 20, verse 11. And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead and the small and the great stand before God. And the books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to their works. Underline that word. Verse 13, and the sea gave up the dead which was in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them. And they were judged, every man according to their works. And death and hell was cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And then perhaps the saddest verse in the entire Bible. And whosoever's name was not found written in the Lamb's book of life was thrown into the lake of fire. Is your name written in the Lamb's book of life? Each one of us has to answer that. If you were to die today, is your name written in that book? Because if your name's not written in that book, you will spend eternity in hell. Revelation 21:27. And there shall in no wise enter into heaven anything that defiles, neither anyone who works, abomination or sin, or who lies, but only who are written in the Lamb's book of life. My dad was a science teacher in high school, and on weekends he would speak at a lot of churches around the Pennsylvania community for pastors who were on vacation or missions trips. And I had a brother and two sisters, and one of us four always got to travel with Dad. And my dad would always say during his sermon, he'd look out and he'd say, there's people here this morning who are going to miss heaven by 18 inches. And I can remember being a young kid sitting down on the front row, and I would think, wow, they were so close to making it to heaven. 18 inches. That's what they missed heaven by. How do you do that? How do you miss heaven by 18 inches? Do you know how you do that? Right here. You have a head knowledge, but you don't have a heart knowledge. Most of the verses that I've read you this morning, I'd say majority of you have heard them before. Many of you have them up here in your head. But there's never been a point like the thief on the cross where you turn to Christ and you say, I'm accepting that for myself. And you get that heart knowledge. Don't miss heaven by 18 inches. Revelation 21:8. But the cowardly, unbelieving folks that may have a head knowledge but not a heart knowledge, abominable, murderers, sexually immoral, sorcerers, adulterers, and all liars shall have their part in the lake of fire, which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death.